I'm Tim from Tim's Garden Centre in Campbelltown, and this is my home vegetable garden. Now if you're going to make a vegetable garden at home, it needs to get full sun all day. Otherwise the vegetables just won't get enough food and they won't grow successfully. Now my vegetable garden is just outside my kitchen door. And why that works is that I can see when the vegetables are ready to eat, and also it makes me look after the vegetable garden because I can see it from the windows and the door. Now people think that vegetable gardens are ugly, but they don't have to be. What I've done to make my garden beautiful is I've surrounded it with garden hedges. I've got a buxus hedge that runs around the perimeter. This makes the vegetable garden look neat and tidy, and it's actually turned it into a feature. What I've also done is I've planted fruit trees around the vegetable garden. And you can see I've got a mandarin tree, I've got apple trees, I've got a lemon tree, the Cabernet lemon tree, olive tree in the background, cherry tree, and an almond tree. So in a tiny backyard like this, I've been able to make it a very productive area. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to prepare this garden for planting. I'm going to show you how to do that. The first thing we have to do is to remove everything out of the vegetable garden, and that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I've pulled it all out, and now I'm going to start to prepare my soil. Now just a tip for you if you've got a dog at home, what I've done to keep the dogs and the rabbits out, because I live in the country, is I've made this little chicken wire fence that runs around the garden, and it just keeps the animals out, and it works so beautifully. It also keeps little children out of your garden as well, so that's not a bad idea. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to dig some cow manure into the soil. Now I garden organically, that's all I use. I don't use any chemical fertilisers at all. And the cow manure I use is Tim's cow manure, of course. Now why this cow manure is so special is it's actually cow manure. Now the sheds are being a bit tricky. What they're doing to stop the cow manure smelling, they're mixing recycled green waste with it. And they're still calling it cow manure. So just be careful. If it says composted cow manure on the bag, don't buy it. That's code for cow manure mixed with recycled green waste. Now Tim's cow manure is real cow manure, so that's the best. So what we're going to do is we're going to open that bag, we're going to tip it on the ground, and then we're going to dig it in. And I just want to show you something as well. Left over from last season is all this beautiful sugarcane mulch, which is now starting to compost. And that's fantastic, because what I'm going to do once I spread the cow manure on top of the soil is I'm going to dig the cow manure and this sugarcane mulch into the soil. And what that's going to do, it's going to put organic matter into the soil, and organic matter is what holds the water. And that's what encourages all those beautiful earthworms to come and live in your garden. So now that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spread the cow manure over the top, and in a garden this size, I'm going to need about 4 bags of cow manure. Now our next job is we're going to turn that soil over, and I like to use a long-handled shovel. It's much easier on your back than if you're using one of those little tiny spades where you're bent over. It's a real backbreaker. So make sure you've got a long-handled shovel or a long-handled garden fork. What I've got to do then is I've got to turn that soil over, and I'm going to mix all that beautiful cow manure and that sugarcane mulch into the soil. As I turn it over, I'm breaking up, and already I'm finding earthworms. That's a good sign. If you've got earthworms in your soil is healthy. Also, as I'm turning that soil over, I'm looking for white curl grubs. Now they're grubs, those white grubs that are curled, and they've got a coppery coloured head. Now what they do is they eat the roots off your vegetables, so we don't want them in our vegetable garden. And the best way to get them out is as you're turning the soil, if you find them, pick them out and either feed them to the chooks or put them in your garbage bin. Now I said earlier, you've got to watch out for these. These are curl grubs. Now they're bad news in a vegetable garden, because what they do is they eat the roots off your plants, and they can cause your plants to die. Now the easiest way to get rid of them is just to dig them out. As you're turning the soil over, get them out. Now you put them in, feed them to your chooks, or put them in your bin. Whatever you do, Don't throw them on your grass, or they'll disappear into the lawn in 2 seconds. So they're curl grubs, bad news for vegetable gardens. Now I've turned all that soil over with my long-handled shovel, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rake the top of the soil, just level it off. And also the rake helps break up some of those larger crumbs as well. So I'm just raking that level. Now I'm not worried about all those bits of old organic matter. I'm leaving that in the soil because that's going to help improve the soil as well. What you've probably already noticed as well is that I'm walking on a path here, a timber path. And what this does, it allows me to access the garden without having to trample on the soil. Because if I stand on the soil while I'm doing all these jobs, I'm actually compacting it so that soil won't accept moisture. So that's a very good idea to have a path down the middle of your garden. So I'm raking it nice and level, and I'm still finding curl grubs. Now I've actually got a pet blue-tongued lizard which lives over there in a water pipe. What I've been doing is just squashing some of their heads and putting them in the garden there, and later on the blue tongue will come out when I'm not around and he'll eat those, and that's my way of keeping my pet blue tongue around my garden. And what I've also noticed is that pet blue tongue eats a lot of the snails that try and get into my garden, which is fantastic. Okay, so that's done. Now, I need to get the sugarcane mulch. Now, why is sugarcane mulch so fantastic? What I like about it is it's got no weeds in it. Now, lucerne is a much better mulch, but if you put that on your vegetable garden, weeds will pop up that you've never seen before in your life. Now, what sugarcane mulch does is it locks in the moisture and stops water evaporating. So what happens is your plants get 70% more water. Also what it does is, when you poke a hole through it to plant your seedlings, and I'll show you that later on, it actually supports your seedlings and stops them laying flat on the ground and burning. And during the day, on a hot day like today, the water evaporates out of the sugarcane mulch and actually air conditions your plants. So what I find is I never lose a seedling if I'm planting it through the sugarcane mulch. Now, a secret to opening a sugarcane bag is don't open it at the top. It's almost impossible to try and get it out. What I like to do is cut it straight down the middle. Makes it so much easier to get out. Right, then we're going to start to spread it, and I'll show you how thickly I'm going to put it. And I'll continue to do this, and we'll be back in a minute and I'll show you how to plant. But the most important thing about sugarcane mulch is that it actually stops the weeds growing in your garden. So it's less work for you. The other thing it does, because it's quite dusty, snails and slugs hate walking on it. Now once you've laid the sugarcane mulch down, you have to water it. If you don't, and you get a windy day, it'll blow it away. What I'm using here is a rain wand watering wand, and they are fantastic. I've got that hose turned on full ball, and you can see it's got a nice soft shower. It's not washing the sugarcane mulch away. Now before you plant your seedlings, you have to make sure they're well watered. So give them a good drink in the punnet. You can also dunk them in a bucket of water. That's a good way of wetting them as well. Because if you plant seedlings when the soil is dry, there's not much chance they're going to survive. Now I've watered the mulch down, and now I'm ready to plant. If you need help with your seedling selection, come and see one of our horticulturists at Tim's Garden Centre. Now what I'm going to plant here today, I'm going to plant some beetroot, and these are really easy to grow. What you do is you tip them out of the punnet, and you need to get some soil with them. That keeps the roots intact and also gives them a water supply. Right, what I do next is I poke a hole in the mulch. Watch what I do. And poke them in. I said earlier that the mulch helps support the leaves and stops them lying flat on the ground. It gives you a much better strike rate. Now most seedlings, you plant them between 20 and 45 centimetres apart. Now there'll be at least 25 seedlings in this punnet. what I'm also doing is I'm planting the smallest growing plants at the front of the garden, because that's north, and I'm planting the taller growing plants at the back so that they don't shade the littler plants. So that's from small to tall. I'm zigzag planting them, just to give them a little bit more room. So what I'm doing is I'm poking a hole through the mulch to the soil. That's very important. Getting lots of soil on that seedling, poking it through into the soil, using the mulch to support the stems to hold it upright. You can see how many plants are in here, it's just amazing. And don't be frightened, plants are much tougher than what you think. Now if you don't think you're going to be able to eat 12 cabbage, Oasis have come up with a great idea. What they've done is brought out a punnet that's got 2 cauliflower in it, 2 cabbage and 2 broccoli plants. So how much easier is that? I know myself it would take me a year to eat 12 cauliflowers, but I'm going to eat 2, no worries at all. Now these grow a little bit bigger, so I'm going to plant these further apart than what I planted the beetroot. Broccoli can grow about 60 centimetres high and about 45 centimetres across, so I'm going to give them lots of room. And I like to zigzag plant, it just gives the plants more room. Now I've planted those seedlings and now I'm giving them a really good water in. Now you'll need to water your seedlings every day for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And after that, 2 or 3 times a week is enough. Now once you've watered those in, then what you'll need to do is to apply some snail bait. Now if you don't put snail bait down, what will happen is overnight the slugs and snails will come out and they'll eat your seedlings and they'll be gone. So don't be disappointed, make sure you use one. Now this is a great snail bait, it's called Multi-Guard Snail and Slug Killer. Why I like this product, it's non-poisonous to dogs and cats, and it's also non-poisonous to birds and lizards, which is very important because I've got a pet lizard living over there, pet blue tongue. So sprinkle this out, and that'll control the snails and slugs without killing you or your family. So I'll just sprinkle them. Now when spring comes, I'll repeat this entire process. It's that easy, and then I'll plant my tomatoes. Happy gardening.